I offer my condolences to everyone. And I hope that by the grace of the Almighty God and by the reappearance of the Holy Savior Imam al-Mahdi, all this injustice and oppression which has plagued the entire humanity, it all comes to an end. With respect to the Holy Prophet, the Holy Quran has said that it has made halal or the pure things, and it has banned and prohibited whatever that is impure. This single verse of the Quran is so deep and profound. If one tries to think about this, and if they try to see the correlation between this verse and the life of the Holy Prophet of Islam, Tayyibat, the word Tayyibat refers to all that is good, and the word Khaba'is addresses all that is evil. The Quran gives this description about the Holy Prophet, saying that he was the one who made everything halal, whatever that is good, whatever that is good in terms of politics, in terms of health, in terms of eating, in terms of psychology, and everything else that is good, it has been made pure to all people. And the Prophet says no and bans anything that is not good. Anything in any field that you can imagine. The Prophet has never supported anything that is bad, and he has never stopped supporting, or he has not even prohibited anything that is good. He has not supported any evil in politics, in the wars, in peacetime, in sociology, in psychology, whatever that is bad has not been supported by the Holy Prophet. And the number is so big. There are many things which are evil and bad. At the beginning, I would like to say a few words about the sacred Arbaeen ritual, and I would like to thank all those people who had the honor by any means possible to participate in the glorious Arbaeen walk. People from different countries, from different Islamic and non-Islamic countries. It's a great honor for them to have been able to visit the sacred shrine of the Holy Imam Hussein, and I thank them all. Of course, the rewards are what God has promised, but I, as a religious duty of myself, would like to say thanks to all of them. All those people who served the pilgrims, who created similar walks in different parts of the world, particularly with bare feet, as it is mentioned in the traditions. Tens of kilometers they walked bare feet to the holy city of Karbala. Those people who did this religious act in Iraq and in other countries, and they commemorated the glorious day of Arbaeen. Those people who distributed food among the pilgrims, those who sacrificed and gave away whatever they had. Some of them sold their house, sold their shelter, and used the money to serve the pilgrims. And that makes this pilgrimage so special. Some people took loans to contribute to this glorious religious act and Arbaeen pilgrimage. I would like to thank every one of them. And it is my religious duty to pray for them in my prayers. And I believe that this is a great honor for me, because the Holy Infallible Imam prayed for these pilgrims while he was prostrating in his prayers. And as you know, whatever the Holy Imam does is actually a sign and a proof that we should follow that sort of action. And therefore I would like to thank everyone, and anyone who can hear me now in any part of the world. They also should do their best. They also should try to pray for these people and contribute to their efforts in glorifying the glorious Arbaeen pilgrimage. This year's Arbaeen is finished, but we need to help compensate for the loans or the expenses people made during the Arbaeen pilgrimage. We need to find people who made donations and help them continue this job. We need to join this great action and help those people who went through hard times because of their donations to the great Arbaeen pilgrimage. And this would in fact entail the God's mercy and compassion. And and about those people who stopped or tried to stop this pilgrimage. Those people who stood in the way of the people who wanted to participate in this pilgrimage. There is this tradition that I read which makes me shiver and quiver with fear. And this tradition is a very reliable tradition. First of all, I should mention that there's no doubt for any Muslim individual, not just the Shia Muslims. This is a reality which is mentioned in tradition, both from the Sunnis and Shiite Muslims, that the pilgrimage to Imam Hussein is more rewarding than going on Hajj. And there are many traditions to support this idea, both from the Sunnis and the Shiites. And if you try to collect all these traditions, you can have a book in front of you. Even in the so-called Sihah Setta, you can find traditions about the great value and rewards of making pilgrimage to Imam Hussein's shrine. Surely Hajj is very valuable and important. Many great Shiite scholars have also said that making pilgrimage to Imam Hussein is mandatory for Shiite believers once a year. But the majority of scholars have issued the verdict that this pilgrimage is mustahab, is recommended. And here comes the tradition. Ishaq bin Ammar is a very reliable companion of Imam Sadiq, peace be upon him. Ishaq bin Ammar is accredited by many great Shia scholars, including Sheikh Mufid and many others. Ishaq bin Ammar, his companion, narrated the story to Imam Sadiq. This is the story. He said that there was this person who was weak and he wanted to go to Hajj pilgrimage, and he was consulting me whether he should go to Hajj or not. And I saw him that he is so weak and feeble, and I told him that you don't need to go to Hajj pilgrimage because it was not a mandatory pilgrimage at the time. It was his second time. And Imam Sadiq answered in 2 sentences. This idea is repeatedly mentioned in the traditions from the Holy Infallibles, but this one is outstanding. So Ishaq is saying that there was this weak person who wanted to go to Hajj pilgrimage, but he doesn't need to because he is very weak and he is not going to handle the pilgrimage. The Imam did not tell him that he is not doing something right. The Imam said that it is suitable for you. You are fitting to be sick for what you just said for 1 whole year. And this person got sick, and for 1 whole year he was sick, and he could not get well, no matter what treatments he received. He is one of the famous companions of Imam Sadiq. And he has narrated and quoted hundreds of narrations from the holy Imam Sadiq. And he was punished for making the wrong, giving the wrong consultation to that old person. And this is good because this person was not punished in the hereafter. He was receiving his punishment in this world. But what if the punishment is postponed to the hereafter? And most certainly the pilgrimage to the shrine of Imam Hussein is more valuable than the pilgrimage to Hajj. So what happens if you just say no to it? If you just obstruct it in any way? There were many people who tried to stop this pilgrimage. Harun, the Abbasid ruler, he was one of those people. And he was such a powerful person who said that wherever the clouds try to let go of their rain, it all falls on my territory. And he finally was mercilessly butchered and killed. And most of the time you can see that, the Abbasid rulers, they don't have grave sites. Of course, Harun has a grave, but it is just, a place where people go there and just curse him. They killed a lot of people to stop people from going to the shrine of Imam Hussein. They tortured people, they tried to intimidate people. He himself, by his own hands, flagged people who tried to go to the pilgrimage of Imam Hussein. But where is he now? And Imam Ali said that Mutawakkil is the most ruthless one of them, one of the Abbasids. This is the prophecy of Imam Ali. Here I would like to mention two historical stories from the time of Mutawakkil with regards to the pilgrimage to Imam Hussein. The hardest time to make a visit to the shrine of Imam Hussein was during the time of Mutawakkil, which was quite a long time. These oppressive rulers, whenever they overlooked the Shia believers, the grave of Imam Hussein, people got there and built a dome above the shrine and created a small town or a village near the shrine. And every time this happened, those oppressive rulers sent their agents and soldiers to destroy the area. In one of those cases, Mutawakkil sent his special agent to the area. Their mission was to destroy the city of Karbala. And when the special agent with his entourage and army arrived there, he saw that there were quite a lot of people living in the area. And he shouted that everyone in this place should be executed by the orders of Mutawakkil. One of the residents came at him and told him that we're not going to leave this place no matter what, even if you're going to kill us. Because even if you kill us, there will be other people who will come to this place At the time, Mutawakkil had some other political competitions in other areas, and he stopped the agent and told the agent to address some other issues. In another story, Mutawakkil sent another person to the city of Karbala to destroy the city. He also announced that by the orders of Mutawakkil, he said that everyone is going to be punished by mutbiq. It was not just killing, it was mutbiq. According to history, at mutbiq was a kind of prison, which was a dungeon. It was a dungeon in the middle of a desert. They used to dig a hole in the middle of a desert, and they created some rooms in there in such bad weather. Those rooms were so small that you could barely manage to sit in there. You could not even stand. And they used to put people inside those rooms while they were chained to each other and also to the ground. And they used to do this to the pilgrims of Imam Hussein. They used to chain them to the ground, and they just, fed them so much that they don't die immediately, so that they suffer. And Ibn Arabi says this about Mutawakkil. He says, Ibn Arabi says that Mutawakkil was like the messenger of God. Both he was a ruler and he was supported by God. This is what Ibn Arabi has to say about such a ruthless killer and ruler. Mutawakkil was not a Muslim. And Imam Ali said it out loud that Mutawakkil is the most ruthless and inhumane of them all. In the previous story I said that when those people were threatened to be killed, those people stood their ground. But when they were threatened to be put in that Mutbiq prison, that very scary prison, all of those people who were living in Karbala, they had to leave. Just imagine that someone is chained to the ground in the middle of a desert, and they are left to die. But today, we cannot even find a grave from Mutawakkil. Sometimes I tell those people who visit Samara city, and I tell them the place where Mutawakkil is buried, because it's a lesson. You can learn a lot of lessons about those people who try to obstruct the way to the pilgrimage of Imam Hussein. There is a place called Malviya. If you just head over there from the shrine of Imam Hadi and Imam Hassan Askari, Couple of kilometers, if you go into the desert, it's a barren land. And funny story, this barren land is called the Khalifa or the Caliphs because it is the burial site of many Abbasid rulers. One of them is Mutawakkil. You cannot find a single structure in that desert. During the Abbasid time, that place, the Khulafa Desert, was the center of the city, but now the city has moved away and the shrines are at the center of the city. It's such a pity to see that the pilgrimage of Imam Hussein was obstructed by so many people in many countries. Even some Muslim countries tried to stop it. They don't have the authority to stop this pilgrimage. God has not given them the authority to make a decision about this. In the past, there were people who went on this pilgrimage and they were killed. Their hands were cut off. Their hands were cut off by knives, by the agents of the Abbasid rulers. Their legs were cut off. But never the Holy Infallibles discouraged people from joining this pilgrimage. On the other hand, they encouraged people to go on this pilgrimage. Imam Hadi asked someone to find someone visiting the shrine of Imam Hussein, and he instructed the person to go to the shrine, to the grave of Imam Hussein, and pray for Imam Hadi. Imam Hadi is an exception. Everything about Imam Hussein is an exception, including his pilgrimage. Not only didn't they facilitate this pilgrimage, not only they did not help the pilgrims to join this pilgrimage, but also they tried to stop. I mean, God have mercy on them, because they're going to face a lot of troubles, both in this world and in the hereafter. And the punishment in the hereafter is much worse. A single word of discouragement by a person like Ishaq bin Ammar caused him to be suffering through a sickness for 1 whole year. He just tried to stop one old person from going to pilgrimage, to Hajj pilgrimage. We need to deliver this message to the entire world. And this mission of delivering this message to the world is repeatedly mentioned by the Holy Prophet of Islam in the famous sermon of Ghadir. We need to spread this message in all countries, whether they are Muslim countries or non-Muslim countries. I offer my thanks to all those people who served this glorious Arbaeen watch this year. All those people who tried to introduce the great pilgrimage of Arbaeen to the world. If you read the history of the Holy Prophet of Islam, you can see that for 13 years he used to live in Mecca, and he was always preaching. Even during the time that he was exiled from Mecca, And they had threatened if they see the Prophet in Mecca, they would kill him. Still, the Prophet continued to preach the message of Islam to all people. You can find stories about this preaching and about this period in the 14th volume of Bihar al-Anwar. Prophet asked one of the pagan figures to give him refuge so that he could enter the city of Mecca and preach the message of Islam. The Prophet used to go to different tribes in the area and speak to them and invite them to enter the religion of Islam. The Prophet visited several tribes in the suburbs of Mecca and tried to preach the message of Islam to them, but none of those tribes accepted the religion of Islam at the time. This was a great disappointment, but the Holy Prophet never stopped preaching. He was never let down by this. And the Holy Prophet instructs us that we can find a very perfect role model in the Holy Prophet of Islam. So we should not be let down. We need to preach whatever that is good which we can learn from the Holy Ahlul Bayt to the world, and we also can discourage whatever that is bad, which we can learn again from the Holy Ahlul Bayt. I thank everyone and I pray for everyone. And I would recommend everyone to use the appropriate means, such as the social media or the satellite TVs, to transmit the message of the Holy Ahlul Bayt and that of the Holy Prophet of Islam to the entire world, and try to contribute to this action by whatever that you have or by whatever job that you can do. A single word can be effective. As you could see in the story of Ishaq bin Ammar, he just said a single word which caused him to be a sick person for one whole year. And with respect to the Holy Prophet of Islam, we can never do justice about him. Whatever that is mentioned or said about him, do not do him justice. I recommend all dear young ladies and young boys everywhere in the world to try to read something about the Holy Prophet of Islam. And remember that those books are just 1,000s. They cover only a very, very tiny part of the life and character of the Holy Prophet. There is the famous book Kuhlul Basar. It's in Arabic. Maybe there are Farsi or English translations of the book. There are many other books about the character and the life of the Holy Prophet. You can read those books and then you can use those information that you learn from the books to inform other people about the character of the Holy Prophet. You could use the social media platforms, or you could write about it in newspapers, or maybe you could write books. By any means possible, you could introduce the Holy Prophet to the world, because there are relative freedoms in our world today, and therefore we all have big responsibilities. Every young Muslim man and woman, they have the responsibility to preach the message of Islam and introduce the character of the Holy Prophet of Islam to the world. Let's go back to the verse I read. He made halal, he made free whatever that is good, and he made haram or prohibited whatever that is evil. What is the virtuous approach of a man towards his husband, towards his wife? How should the man treat his woman, or vice versa? or the other way around. What is bad to do? What is it that you should not do to your wife or to your husband? The parents should also evaluate their relationship with their children based on the teachings of the Holy Ahlul Bayt. People who have subordinates, the chiefs of tribes, or the head of a company, a teacher at school, the buyers and sellers. Whenever there is a relationship between people, like that of a government and its people, like that of a leader and his followers, they need to evaluate or re-evaluate their relationship or their connection or the way they face their people and deal with their people in accordance to the teachings of the Holy Ahlul Bayt. They should rid themselves of whatever that is evil and uphold whatever that is good. Here I would like to mention this little thing. The Holy Prophet was the leader of the government for 10 years in Holy Medina. In those 10 years, the Prophet had to deal with countless number of problems, both from within the Muslim community by the hypocrites, and also by those people outside the Islamic community, the pagans or the other enemies of the Holy Prophet. I assume that there are no historical eras in the entire history of humanity where they had to deal with more problems than the time of the Holy Prophet. In less than 10 years, these wars came to an end a little before the span of 10 years. The Prophet had to defend against almost 80 wars ignited by the enemies in less than 10 years. Aside from those wars, there were the issue of hypocrites who used to spy on the Islamic community and leak important information to the enemies. And how the Holy Prophet handled them and dealt with them is very instructive. Despite all these problems, in spite of all these problems, and during that 10 years, no Muslim individual or no person under the leadership of the Holy Prophet of Islam, no one died of hunger. And this tells us something about the Islamic economy. This achievement has never been achieved by any other government in history. We can never find any person die of hunger under the leadership and under the government of the Holy Prophet of Islam. No one committed suicide because of poverty. Today we see a lot of cases of suicide because of economic issues in the world. And this shows and tells a lot about the economy that the Holy Prophet brought with himself to the Arab society. We need to learn these things from the Holy Prophet. But what is the problem that we don't learn these things? Part of the reason is because we as preachers do not do our responsibility, and part of it is because we are rebellious, as the Holy Quran puts it. Usually you should ask yourself the question, why is it that the bad people continue doing things that are bad even after they see the outcome and the consequences of their evil actions? Never those evil people recommend their successors to be as evil as themselves. But still you see that, people are rebellious, they commit crimes, and they just go on the wrong way. We had no cases of kidnappings or criminal activities under the leadership of the Holy Prophet of Islam. And today you can see, even in Muslim countries, that if you just read the newspaper, you can see a lot of cases of corruption and criminal activities in those countries. Young boys and girls are kidnapped because of money or other things. But none of these things happened at the time of the Holy Prophet. And this tells us a lot about the economy of Islam at the time of the Holy Prophet. And this was the same during the period of Imam Ali. And we can find none of these ills, social and economic ills, during the time of the Holy Prophet of Islam. Once this story happened to Muawiyah. So Muawiyah had this issue dealing with something in his government, and he posed this question to Imam Ali through an intermediate person, an intermediary. He asked someone to ask the same question from Imam Ali, and Imam Ali said that in my kingdom, in my leadership, under my leadership, never such a thing would happen. The leadership and the power of Imam Ali reached to the heart of Europe and to the heart of Africa, except for a part of the Middle East, and where Imam Ali was sure that such an unchaste activity would not happen under his leadership. And therefore Imam Ali understood that this was something that happened in the lands of Muawiyah, the lands controlled by Muawiyah. And you can see that the perfect economy in the government of the Holy Prophet, the moral political approach to government was performed and displayed by the Holy Prophet of Islam. And thus you can see that the Prophet Imam Ali never tried to achieve victory through immoral and unethical means. And the Holy Prophet never allowed for his soldiers to cut water access to the enemies so that he could defeat them easier. He never did this. It was a time of war. By the common sense logic, it was allowed for people to cut the access of the enemies to water so that they could defeat them easier. Even in the Battle of Siffin, you could see the same example. Even before the war had started, the army of Muawiyah captured the water, and they did not allow Imam Ali's soldiers to reach water. Imam Ali attacked the enemy and took over the water resources, and Muawiyah and Amr as, they were both scared because they thought that Imam Ali would do the same to them and do not give them water. But both of them admitted that Imam Ali is an ethical person and he would not stop them from accessing water. And this happened. This is the true humanitarian way of approaching war, approaching politics and economy. And the Islamic governments today need to adopt these approaches. And the Holy Prophet prophesied that there will be only a name of Islam left in the future. And who is responsible for this? Who should be held accountable? Everyone is responsible and they should be held accountable. A couple of years ago I have said this and I'm going to repeat it now. The dear youths need to follow up on this story. 200 years ago, there was this Christian priest in Oromia in Iran. He was the person who managed and directed the programs at the chapels in the area, and he was a very active kind of person. About this priest, it is said that he was a priest since he was 12 years old. But a couple of young Shia believers, like you people, they held discussions and debates with this priest, this Christian priest, and finally this Christian priest became a Shiite Muslim, and his name became Muhammad Sadiq. And this young convert, Muhammad Sadiq, he used to make lectures, deliver lectures in different cities of Iran, and he used to invite people to Shia Islam. It was at the time of Sahib Jawahir, before Sheikh Ansari and Mirza Shirazi. This person could convert thousands of Christians to Shia Islam through his lectures. And this person published several books. One of the books, you can write down the name of this book. The book's name is Bayanul Haq by Muhammad Sadiq, this Christian priest, this former Christian priest. And this book is in 10 volumes. 2 volumes have been published. I've seen one of the volumes. My late brother was writing a book about the Holy Prophet, and he had this 1 volume of this book by Bayan al-Haq. The 4th volume of this book is about the Holy Prophet of Islam and about the miracles And this priest, this former Christian priest, used the Christian scriptures to mention some of the miracles of the Holy Prophet of Islam, which you could not normally find in the Islamic books of history. Eight volumes of the 10 volumes are missing, and no one knows where they are. The youths in non-Muslim countries, they can use these kinds of books. I myself have seen that the original copy of a book by Allama Hilli, which was written by this great scholar, it is now kept in some museum in some European country. It was sold out to those European countries. And maybe you can find the original copy of these books in some Western countries. This is the power of preaching. As you could see that this Christian priest, through the activities and the endeavors of a group of young Shiite believers, he was converted. He converted to Shia Islam, and then by him converting to Islam, thousands of other Christians also converted to Shia Islam. It is mandatory for everyone to preach the message of the Holy Prophet and the Holy Prophet himself. And so long as this duty is not performed fully, every single Muslim individual is bound by this responsibility. So everyone needs to do whatever they can to learn about the Holy Prophet of Islam. The young dear boys and girls in every part of the world, they need to learn about the life of the Holy Prophet of Islam, and they should practically follow the path of the Holy Prophet and also preach this approach, this character to other non-Muslims. It is so heartbreaking to see that the most unknown or unknown character in history is the Holy Prophet of Islam. There are countless number of media outlets which are spreading lies about the Holy Prophet of Islam, and they are funded by certain groups. They just spread lies about the Holy Prophet. There are things which I deter to say about the Holy Prophet. The Holy Prophet was the most pious person in the entire history of humanity, and he is accused of such vile accusations which I abhor even to mention. There are many TV networks, many magazines who try to disparage the image of the Holy Prophet of Islam. I heard some accusations by Nasibi against the Holy Imam Ali. Some believers sued against him, filed a case against him, and he was about to be sentenced to some prison, but after some time, his prison sentence was revoked. It is everyone's responsibility to preach the truth about the Commander of the Faithful and the Holy Prophet, especially the youths, because they have the power and the energy and the spirit to carry out this responsibility. The months of Muharram and Safar, these 2 months of mourning, have come to the end. Usually the mourning continues until the 8th of Rabiul Awal, which is the day of the martyrdom of Imam Hussein. And on the 9th of Rabi, the days of happiness begin. That happiness and this morning, they are both principles of Islam, because we are happy when the Holy Ahlul Bayt is happy, and we are unhappy when they are unhappy. We need to let the world know about this, because this is part of our religious duty. A lot of Muslims do not know about this. There are very reliable traditions about the events of 9th of Rabi. You need to celebrate this day. You should celebrate it by any means possible. They are principles and the pillars of Islamic beliefs. They are practices. Both they are beliefs which are turned into practices, and they have high importance. So the dear youths need to be informed anywhere they are. We are losing a lot of young people. Many of those young people are misinformed. The parents need to protect their children. The teachers need to do their responsibility. And particularly the youth themselves, they should seek truth and continue to study about it. Even you as a young person, you can help your fellow young people, the people whom you can see at your job or at school or in your family. You should spend time with them. You should try to talk them into learning about the Holy Ahlul Bayt and the Holy Prophet. At the time of the Holy Prophet and Imam Ali, there were hypocrites, but there were not a lot of influence they could make on the believers. But today, the situation is not good. Many young people have stopped performing the religious duties. Their beliefs have been corrupt, and part of it because they are being influenced by the corrupt media outlets which are spreading lies about the religion of Islam and the Holy Prophet of Islam. But part of the reason is because of the inactivity by the young Muslims. Young believers should never be let down if their efforts to guide other people look like futile. You need to consistently preach the message of Islam to all people. As you can see, the Holy Prophet consistently spread the message of Islam for many years, and in many cases he was rejected. We need to learn from the example of the Holy Prophet. Those people who are at the seminaries or at universities, they need to study more, because through their studies they can learn more and they can convey more information to other people. Of course, the elderly also have their own way of responsibilities, but two groups of people have the greatest responsibilities: the scholars and the rulers. Two groups from my people. If they are good, all people are good, and if they are bad, all people are bad. They are the scholars and the rulers. This is a tradition from the Holy Infallibles. Usually the scholars are the source of reference by many people, and the governments and the rulers can influence people a lot because they have power, military power, and they have the power to influence the economy of the city or the country they rule. And therefore they both have big responsibilities with respect to the society. Therefore we can see that, bad scholars, corrupt scholars, they can do a lot of damage. So scholars and the rulers have the greatest portion of this responsibility, but it doesn't mean that other people don't have no responsibility whatsoever. Everyone has some responsibility. We need to reach out to the youth in our families, in our workplace, in other places, and try to invite them to the path of Islam, to the path of genuine Islam. And another issue that I would like to emphasize is the marriage of young people. Since the day of 9th of Rabi, we need to help the young people get married. There are a lot of young people at universities, at schools, workplaces. They have some financial problems, or maybe they have other kinds of problems. Try to help them solve those problems and get married and form a family. Maybe you can mediate the marriage. You can help them get married and start their own families. Imam Sajjad has suffered a lot in his life. He is described as crying his whole life. And the Holy Imam has said that marriage is so easy in Islam. Imam Sajjad says that Islam is an easy thing in Islam. Marriage is an easy thing in Islam. A young man and a young girl, they can marry each other while eating stew. It doesn't need to have a big ceremony or a lot of fussing. For the mahriya in marriage, people in the early times of Islam, they used to give a very symbolic gift, like a ring made of iron, not gold or silver. Sometimes the mahriya for a man is to teach the woman, the wife, some verses of the Holy Quran. This is how easy marriage should be. But today we see that marriage has become a very complicated ceremony, which is certainly not Islamic. We need to do our best to get rid of these unnecessary and complicated ceremonies. I remember that back in the holy city of Kabbalah, marriage was an easy thing. When a young boy wanted to get married, it didn't take him months to get married. People from different walks of lives, they were not rich people. They did not have to deal with such, unnecessary ceremonies, and they could easily get married in just a matter of days. When the young boys and girls hit the age of puberty, they need to get married. How are they going to deal with their sexual desire? They either commit sins, they become sick if they are really faithful and abide by the Islamic principles, or they need to get married. So this is a very big thing to do. On the 9th of Rabi, on to the next months, we need to do whatever we can to facilitate the marriage of the young boys and girls. If they don't have money, we can give them loans. This is a responsibility of everyone. They need to try to facilitate marriage by any means possible. We should not regret what we could do in the future. If a person tries to help another young person in their marriage, every step they take, every step that you take in this process of helping another person get married is equivalent to great rewards. The young married girls and the young married boys, they should help their fellows and their peers to get married. And this is the real Islam. And this is the real Islam. Nothing else is called Islam. Imagine that you write the word bread on a piece of paper. You cannot eat it. It's just the word bread. If you just write water on a piece of paper, you cannot drink it. It's just the word. And usually the Islam that we see in our today's world is just the letters of the word Islam, not the Islam itself. I hope that Almighty God grants this honor to all people and to all believers. And I hope that this spirit of commemorating the memory of Ahlul Bayt, which we achieved during the 2 months of Muharram and Safar, we can keep it up. We can keep this spirit and also celebrate at the times of the happiness of the holy Ahlul Bayt in the future. May God bless Muhammad and his pure household.